I'm happy to welcome you back to the Garden of English. I'm Tim Freitas, and today we're going to be focusing on how you can make conclusions for your rhetorical analysis essay. We're going to do this in about 3 steps. If you haven't watched all our other videos in this series about how to read rhetorically, break down the prompt, and write sophisticated thesis statements, topic sentences, and commentary, you're going to want to check them out. All of these videos are linked right in the description, right down below. Also, just like with all the other review videos in this series, we're going to use the Cesar Chavez piece from the 2015 AP English Language Exam. That too is linked in the description. Okay folks, when it comes to conclusion, I know that many people are often told to reword their thesis statements and summarize their papers, but I want to teach you to do something incredibly more effective. You see, if you ever look at professional authors or really consider any of the essays you read in class, you're going to notice rather quickly that almost no excellent writer embraces either technique that I just mentioned. So I don't think that you'll want to either, especially if you want to become a better writer. To write a sophisticated conclusion, you're going to want to think about how you can articulate the learning process throughout the ending of your paper. The learning process is made up of 3 components: knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. It just so happens that these 3 components will make up the 3 moves that you want to make as you produce your final paragraphs of any paper that you ever write. You see, as you learn, you're exposed to things that you should be able to identify and know. Once you can identify and know these things, you'll be able to understand how this knowledge applies and functions in the real world. And as you consider your understandings, you'll be moved to impart some wisdom that you have about those understandings to others. And so with this in mind, let's consider how to go through this process for your conclusions. We'll start with identifying the knowledge in the piece. By the way, did you know that this video actually works in conjunction with my Unit 4 and Unit 7 reviews that are part of my Ultimate Review Packet? This packet's a complete exam review series that you should check out if you want an A in your AP class and a 5 on your exam. This packet provides you with video reviews, notes guides, answer guides, practice multiple choice questions with rationales, and practice exams that have self-guided rubrics and essay models so you can actually self-score. What could be better? Nothing. So check out the Ultimate Review Packet for your AP Language Exam right at the top link in the description down below this video. You can also check it out here. Okay, back to business. Your first step in writing a conclusion is identifying the universal ideas that a speaker wants his or her audience to know about as he or she delivers the piece. Get it? Knowledge? Know? Okay, good. Universal ideas are just abstract nouns, and if you'd like some examples to see what they are, you're going to notice that some will show up on your screen right about now. Okay, well what you want to do when you're getting ready to write the first part of your conclusion is to first list out 4 or 5 universal ideas that your essay or the essay that you're reading and that you're actually analyzing explores. So if we were to search for these ideas in the Chavez piece, we're going to look for things like nonviolence, justice, human rights, democratic change, power, and patience. Now once we have these nuggets of knowledge at our fingertips, we're going to create the first sentence of our conclusion. You can do this in one of 2 ways. First, simply articulate the relationship between any and all of the ideas that we just identified before. When you write this sentence, just think about answering this question. What does the speaker want his or her audience to know about these ideas once they've experienced the whole piece? So what a first sentence could look like in relation to the Chavez piece would be something like this. And don't forget, I'm just connecting the ideas. In the midst of civil unrest, Chavez emphasizes the incredibly important role that patience plays in ushering in powerful, lasting democratic change. Hey, that's pretty good. I didn't just reword my thesis. Instead, I began expounding upon it, focusing on the knowledge that Chavez was imparting to those who were listening. Remember though, I said that there are 2 ways to write this first sentence, and I'm going to show you a second option that is way more sophisticated if you can do it right. So pay attention and try it out. And if you realize this is too hard for you, then just stick with the first way, and that's not a problem because they're both good. But the other way to write a strong first sentence is to express the relationship between the ideas that we're trying to create, but we want to do it with a pertinent metaphor. This will lead to your first sentence having a bit more style. But you can't just make up any random comparison. It has to be one that directly relates to the rhetorical situation or the reading in some way. So let me give you an example of this in relation to this prompt. Since Cesar Chavez was a civil rights leader for the farm workers movement, I'm going to use that to create my first sentence. Check it out. Throughout his piece, Chavez plants the seeds of patience throughout the fields of potential unrest in hopes of growing a movement based on the power of human rights. Look at how well that comparison fits into the role that Chavez has. That's a really cool sentence. It not only expresses what the piece is about, but it also applies to it a greater knowledge of Chavez and his struggle. It really highlights inferential reading skills because you can actually pick up from reading through the piece that he was the leader of the farm workers movement. Okay, let's shift to step 2. We need to go to the understanding phase. And this phase can be completed in about 1 to 3 sentences. In step 2, what we're going to do is move the conclusion to being more universal. We're going to separate a little bit from Chavez and his intended audience and make it a bit more timeless. When we take Chavez and his audience out of the picture, we're going to replace them with more universal terms like people and individuals and leaders. This is because we're trying to demonstrate that we understand what we know from Chavez and his words back in the 1970s actually applies universally, whether in the past, present, or future. So if I were to write this section of my conclusion, I'm going to say something along the lines of this. By embracing his role as a public figure with a positive message, Chavez provides a model to those who seek to challenge and upend the oppressive status quo. Individuals and civil leaders must always hold the right to life and involvement of the masses as their premier principles behind any moral cause. Notice how I moved from Chavez to individuals and civil rights leaders. You can see that I'm shifting towards the universal, and now I could be talking about anyone in any time period. That's how you complete this step. But now we have to move to the final stage of the learning process, and that is the wisdom stage. And that's going to be the third step for how we write our conclusion. In this particular section, you're going to want to write a final sentence that is still universal in nature, but it's meant to impart some wisdom that someone should gain after being able to experience the knowledge and understanding of the piece as a whole. The absolute best way to do this is by including at least one 3 to 5 word piece of text from the reading in this final sentence. And picture this kind of like writing a sentence that reads like a fortune cookie, but not a lame one. So I'm going to model this here, and I'm going to finish my conclusion with a sentence like this. Though, when those seeking change forget these goals, they not only risk damaging their reputations, but also lose their sense of justice as they seek a shortcut to change, and that's not worth it no matter how just their cause may be. So now that we've gone through these 3 steps, here's what the traditional conclusion would look like if you didn't use the stylized for a sentence. It's going to show right up on your screen. And here's what the stylized conclusion would look like. A good conclusion is a lot like a mic drop. You said it and let it sink in. All right, folks, thanks for hanging in there throughout this video and throughout this entire review series for rhetorical analysis. Now that you've experienced how to make it all the way through this type of essay, you're going to want to check out what's over here. And that's so that you can review for your AP Lit exam and move on to conquering the argument essay.